It's actually honestly a 50-50 in my
Mm.
mind now that I think about
Okay.
it. Because I think the meta is going to hyper carries. We were talking about hype.
Mitchell
I'm
just
like,
choked
did
on his
did I
drink.
say something weird?
Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alastair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I am the League Dad, and I'm back. I mean, I really missed you guys. Kevin and Mitchell, y'all did such a fantastic job last week. Thank you for holding it down and giving us. There was too much happening that we needed to say, and I'm glad that you guys could represent the All In Podcast and say the things that we wanted to talk about. But we're back in full force this week with the whole gang. Alastair's back. Just had a major road trip. I'll let him tell you all about it. But before we dive into all the action, guys, how are y'all doing?
I'm doing well. I got a cat today. You might see her in the
Wow.
background at some point today if she ever
Nice.
comes out. But I'm super excited for that. And in the esports side, games have been okay at best. So that's
Yeah.
whatever.
Cool.
Yeah, things have been fairly exciting for me. I went to Montreal this past weekend to participate in LAN ETS in
Nice.
Montreal. A lot of fun. Very tiring. Did a 19-hour road trip yesterday.
Oh my
Got
God.
back at 5 a.m. and had an exam at 8 a.m.
Oh,
I
that's
think I
nice.
did well, but overall,
Well,
good
we're rooting
experience.
for you. We're rooting for you.
Yeah, that's a wild life right there. That's crazy. That's cool. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good too. I'm new setup. I'm actually at my mom's place, visiting before I move to Seattle this weekend. So that's what's
Nice.
been
It's
up
happening.
with me. Yep.
Well,
It's
that's
happening.
exciting, man. I love it. Yeah, same thing. Just, watching the games. I was kind of having a little withdrawal, like, because there were no games after having games like every day.
yeah.
And I was spending like a good couple hours, few hours watching all the games and just, while I'm working, having them up and trying to focus on work, but also watch the games. But there was a lot of stuff that happened, and honestly, it's like, there's a lot of games, but it just hasn't been that exciting of an MSI so far. I mean, we have had the drama, which I think has been kind of overblown, over talked about with the RNG thing and the ping and them having to remake games. But honestly, I want to kind of start us off and talk about this format. It has been mentioned on, I think, the JLXP and around social medias, but because we've had such boring games, like it's you feel so bad for teams like A's, having to go up against T1 and just get dumpstered, or LLA just coming in and getting totally destroyed. Like, it's no fun for it. If I could equate it, it would be like me, a silver player playing in like a challenger game. Like, it's just not fun, like, for either team. Like, nobody gets anything out of it. So there's been a lot of talk about formats and how this format sucks. So let me get your thoughts on that. Do you think it sucks? Maybe offer a suggestion on what you think we could do to change it? Because I do have to agree with the sentiment that this has just not been that exciting so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was some merit to what the LXP is saying. We want to have all the teams involved. We have only X amount of broadcast days. You can't expand that. We want to make sure that, like, it's a mix between cross games between good and bad teams. Because in the past, like, some people on Reddit were suggesting like a wildcard tournament, essentially, right? Which happened. The IWC International Wildcard Championship, or whatever it was called, was like a thing that we had for multiple years at the beginning of league, and frankly, it had like 30K viewers or at max concurrence. So, like, I think from a business standpoint, it's very smart to have the worst teams play against the better teams. And sometimes, in the very rare case, you'll have an upset. Probably not against T1, right? But like, it could happen. The thing I would suggest, which I think is like I have seen, it's not like my original idea, but I have seen an iteration of this, is I just suggest two groups. I don't think,
Yeah.
in my mind, it's not fundamentally the problem that like A's gets destroyed by T1. It's always going to happen, right? But I would think if you ask the A's players, like the first time you play against Faker, like that is like a life, like something you remember, right? Like
Yeah.
it's fun, even
Yeah.
if you lose, right? And this is just like historically has been true for most teams, right? They're like, I'm so glad I got to play against Prime SKT or whatever, or Dom1 or something. But if we add it to a group of 6 this time and a group of 5, you can also see the closer teams play against each other in the group. And then you can kind of like establish a pecking order instead of like, we'll have just random groups where orders just by themselves getting literally e-bullied on broadcast every day. That was some of the saddest things I've ever had to watch. Like, because like if you think about like Group B, right, which is RNG, LPL, PSG, PCS, Red Canids, Brazil, and Istanbul Wildcats, Turkey, right? That was actually not a terrible group.
Yeah.
Red Canids actually almost perfect game to PSG Talon. That was like
Yeah.
sick. I'm like, nice. They might actually have a chance. And then they like went 1-1 with their Turkish rivals. Like Turkey stopped Red Canids from going to tiebreaker with PSG. That's cool. Like even though we
Yes.
had to watch a 9-0 from RNG, like that was cool. And imagine if you just had another team in that group or two more teams in that group, and then you put the 5 in the other group, right? It's fine that there will be stomps because it's not just littered with stomps. Some of the best games have been just two wildcard teams like duking it out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know what to say really, mainly because whichever format you do, people are going to complain.
Yeah.
This is true. People will always
Yeah.
complain.
Reddit exists for a reason, right?
Yeah.
My personal opinion is I think it would be better to do 2 separate tournaments, and not as a disrespect to like the minor regions,
Mhm.
but I think if we, instead of having the number 1 team from each major region, if we had the three best teams from China, Korea, Europe, North America, and then PCS, or however many I don't know how many good teams there are in PCS. I think there's 2, right?
There's like about 2,
Yeah.
usually 1 or 2.
So
Yeah.
if we could just have like something like that, because we're always talking about like MSI should mean something. Well, if we can make it like a small worlds for the wildcard regions and the major regions, but do it separately, because again, like the best games most of the time are the wildcard regions playing wildcard regions.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
Watching
Sure.
it's not very entertaining watching RNG just flex on some team who like
Twice.
yeah, like
Yeah.
3 times,
Yeah, 3.
but where it's not that entertaining. Just watching them curb stomp guys or like teams that just don't even have a chance really. I mean, like obviously like upsets can happen, but it's
Highly
just not-
unlikely.
people aren't
I mean,
going to
it's
want to
fun
watch
the
it.
first time. It's fun
Yeah.
the first time, and then I'm
Yeah,
I'm
but
good.
how many repeats are we going to see of this, right? Like if we
Mhm.
if we can put RNG, and then we also have or like next year we have SKT, Damwon, and we have like Gen G from Korea, and they all show up, and we have the same thing for every other like major region, it would be much more interesting in my opinion. Obviously, it's a lot more games. They'd probably have to do the tournaments or like the games simultaneously,
Mhm.
Mm.
and there'd be a lot of like minor things that, I mean, I wouldn't want to have to coordinate it, but I think it would be much more interesting in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely. So the JLXP kind of like gave some guidelines on how the format could not be changed, and basically Riot is never going to opt into dual broadcasts, which I mean
Yeah.
makes sense for viewership and money, but it is kind of a bummer. And also, I think that they're always not always, but they're always going to be inclined to include your big dogs with your wildcard teams, because they know that in the past, if you have just wildcard groups like the play-ins, right, for Worlds, and usually we used to have play-ins for MSI too.
Mhm.
They just had the lowest viewership, which makes sense, right? So that's why they want to include the major regions. But it's kind of like, though, do you want to open your tournament with that? I always have felt this for a while, that I'm glad the play-ins and the wildcard regions exist, like conceptually, but it always is like it creates such a slow start for our international tournaments.
Yeah.
We're always like, international tournaments are starting. That's so crazy. We gotta wait a week though until we actually get to see the teams we want to play against each other, right? So
Mm.
that sort of fix, like that sort of idea of like competitiveness, I don't think is ever gonna go away. So I'm not sure how to fix it while still wanting to include the wildcard teams with just 2 tournaments. So the way I would fix it is you just have to have more than 1 tournament. You have to have more than 2 international tournaments a year. And
Mm.
that the solution for me is like, regardless of whatever MSI's format, we need maybe 2 more tournaments throughout the year, right? Because honestly, this happens not every year, but it feels like it happens all the time, where the beginning of our international tournaments are just like, people are bored for a week, and then it starts, and then people are
Yeah.
hyped, right? But I've actually been kind of bored for a week, even though I've been watching a ton of games. I'm just kind of like, whatever, I don't really
I
care.
will
Like, these
say
people are
that,
gonna
like,
win, right? So
like it's crazy though, because you're right. Like in the first 2 days though, I'm watching all the games because I want to
Yeah.
see, like, I don't watch a lot of the regions, but I'll tell you, it quickly gets old because by game, like day 2 or whatever, once you've seen them like once, you're like, okay, that's all I needed to see, because it's
Yeah.
curiosity in the beginning, you know.
Yeah, the curiosity is nice for like a day, which is,
That's
maybe
it.
we hone in on that. Maybe
Mhm.
we just give wild card regions a day. And like I know that sucks, right? Because we want to give them chances to prove themselves. But that's why we need more tournaments.
Yeah.
Don't let them prove themselves multiple times in one tournament because people get so bored so fast. Let them prove themselves once, maybe through multiple tournaments,
Yeah.
right? Throughout the year. So that's my solution. Just have more tournaments. I mean, most sports do have more tournaments than just 2 a whole year. And
Yeah.
if you messed up one of them, like I think Double Lift said on his stream, right? You have 2 tournaments all year, right? Like these are the times you can't mess up. And they messed up MSI. They messed up the
Yeah.
ping and they messed up. And there's only literally 2 times in the whole year you can't do that. So if you have more tournaments also, right? It's you mess up one, it's like, okay, well that sucks. But hey, we get another international tournament instead of in 6 months from now, or what is it, 4 months from now, 5 months from now, we get one maybe in 2.5 months. That would be cool, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my thoughts.
Here's another byproduct of, like, so I'm gonna kind of revert back a little bit to Alistair's idea, because I like the idea of, and you guys have all kind of alluded, like, the separation, right? Because if we brought in more teams, like more seeds from each region of the majors, especially, LCK, LEC, LPL, and, NA, we mentioned this before. Like, what sucks about this is that we'll probably get to see, our team play against the top teams like once or twice, maybe, like if we're lucky. But if we had a tournament where it was separate, where there's more seeds and it's more just focused on, you're not having to go through this, like, weeding out the play, the wild card regions before getting the tournament. You can just get more games and start right away. I think it lets at least us, get to play more games against teams that we want to see them. How do they fare up against, LPL's number 2 or LCK's number 3? Like, where do we stand? Because right now we're playing the best, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
LCK, yeah, T1 is tough. We're probably not going to beat them. RNG, probably not going to beat them. But, how do we stack up to the other teams?
Yeah, I would also want to add, if it's like it's just untenable to expand the calendar and have 3 tournaments, which I think should be, but if we couldn't do that, the alternative would be to just make 2 worlds a year. Like,
Yeah.
at
Just
least
make
make
MSI
MSI
Worlds.
worth something. Because
Yeah.
like the reason we complain a little less, at least, about Worlds format, other than no double elim, is because the Worlds plan is actually kind of interesting. Like, DFM takes a game off C9. Well, that's pretty hype.
Yeah.
Or like, because a 3rd seed of NA especially, or EU, versus, like, remember when Mad Lions went 2-4 or 1-5? I think they went
Yeah.
1-5 or some crap like that, and they just got knocked out of play-ins. That
Mhm.
happens because they're not the
Yeah.
first seed.
They're
They're
the
not
4th
that
seed.
good
Yeah.
comparatively,
Yeah.
right? They're the
Yeah.
4th seed. That's totally cool, and like,
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
then you can have more seeds from
Yep.
everyone. Why is MSI a gimped tournament? Like, if all the first seeds from around the world were like really close and there's a lot of parity, it's kind of cool, right? Because it's like an all-star game. It's awesome like that. But it's not in reality. That's not the case. First seed from NA and like first seed from all the major regions are just gonna crap on the lower seeds almost always,
Yeah.
right? Almost always. Like, once you're below the VCS line, it's almost impossible for a 2-game upset. Like, DFM might take a game off C9 again, or in this case EG, but like there's almost no feasible way they would get out of groups, right? If only 2 people get out. So just make it another Worlds. Why can't we have 2 Worlds a year? Like, I actually don't understand.
I would be down because
Worlds such a great event. It's a
Yeah.
prestigious event. Everyone loves it. Spring would matter. I'm just trying to think, like, why is MSI just
that
a crappy version of Worlds when we only have 2 of these things?
Mhm.
that's exactly what I want to highlight too. Is like so many players do not care that much about MSI. Like a lot of the spring split doesn't
Mhm.
matter. Sure, it started when MSI was canceled, but I feel like a lot of players have the mentality where it's like, "Hey, we messed up with spring. It's fine. At least we have worlds, right?" Like that sentiment of at least we have worlds is definitely takes away from the value of MSI, and it would be nice if they were both important, and that if you win spring and you make top 3 in spring, you're actually hype. You actually get to go to a really sick tournament. But
Mhm.
so you can get top 3 in spring and you cannot make it to worlds and you will be forgotten completely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think it, they should really. I do think MSI should be more important for another reason that I don't think we mentioned before, where the game in summer is very likely going to be a completely different game
Yeah,
than
that's
played in
true.
winter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially
especially this year. Especially
Yeah,
this year.
exactly. The game
Yeah.
the game is going to be completely different. So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
MSI means so much, like they could genuinely just make summer worlds and winter worlds instead.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much like production they'd be willing to put in, but I think
Yeah.
like that's really where they should just lean towards, because people are starting to like complaints about stuff like MSI are really starting to increase over the last few years, and if
Yeah.
they really want, like, it feels to me like MSI, there isn't much point in putting it on in its current state, just because people are going to complain about it. People aren't that interested for most of it until the last couple days, and like even looking at the Rumble stage, half these games aren't even going to be like that interesting on paper.
Yeah.
I'm not saying when the game gets played it's going to be super boring, because there's obviously the surprises, but most of them it's like, do we really want to see G2 and Saigon Buffalo?
I mean,
I think
I kind of do because
I kind of do.
I kind of
I
do,
do.
but I definitely
See,
would
but
rather
you
see G2
kind of
versus
do.
RNG,
It's
right?
not like
Yeah.
it's like I kind of do rather than like, oh, that's something I'm looking forward to. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I
I'm looking
actually-
forward to
That's the
G2 versus
difference.
RNG versus SKT like so
Exactly.
badly. Yeah. No, I
There's
get your
just like
sentiment.
comparatively, it's
Yeah.
not that compelling.
For me, the only compelling thing is to see how EG does against those like Saigon, Saigon Buffalo and PSG, because
Yeah,
So
but
that's
sad.
again, like I agree, but that's also because EG has been kind of a bit of a dumpster fire
yeah,
so
yeah.
far. That's what I'm saying.
bad,
Like
yeah.
if we had, I'm glad EG won summer or spring, but I did that's I honestly think that Cloud9, if they didn't implode, or TL, if they made it, they would be doing a lot better.
Yeah.
And that's what I said earlier. It's like, I think just not just because they're not necessarily the best team here, I think just the players they have and the names, they would do better internationally just because they've been there. They know what they're
Yeah,
doing.
they're more consistent. Yeah. I also think it's a big testament to the statement of just how close RNG was to just not showing up, and how the
Mhm.
overall Chinese fan sentiment is just leave the tournament. Who cares RNG? No one cares about MSI. The Chinese fans clearly don't give a crap about MSI. They're like, who cares? Just drop out, take a break, rest up for Asia Games and Worlds. Like
Mhm.
that's the mentality that our fans have. Like these fans of Chinese teams, they've won MSI like what, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times? I
Yeah.
don't know. Chinese actually wins MSI a lot. They really don't give a crap.
Mhm.
That says something, right? That is sad. And yeah, I definitely think MSI needs to change. Whatever it is, I hope it's on
It
the
doesn't.
lines of more games between our best teams. Yeah.
It doesn't help either that they've had all these issues with ping and like with the whole RNG thing, because
Yeah, the remake,
again, not to
yeah.
harp on this too much, but we talk about RNG and the hate that they were getting because it sounded like really looks like lost in translation misunderstanding, but it sounded like they were claiming it was unfair that they had to remake games. And the sentiment is that, hey, look, we are accommodating you just to be in this tournament by, allowing you not to come. And so they felt like, well, how are you going to complain it's unfair? Like we have to play on 35 ping just for you guys. But this is something I wanted to kind of throw your way, because if you're Riot here, right, you're a company, like honestly, again, because of those times where VCS couldn't show up, like they didn't get any special treatment. But the difference here is that, well, one, it's RNG, like LPL is like, top 2 region, right? So like you take them out, you're going to lose a lot of viewership. So it's obvious and clear that Riot will cater to, LPL or LCK for the sake of not losing viewers, right? And it's a money-making thing. Like, unfortunately, VCS, we love you, but you're just not bringing in those types of viewers. You can't come. We're not going to really make accommodations. So, what I'm trying to get at is, what are your thoughts on like, if you were the head of Riot, like, what's your take on this? Because I think people complain about competitive integrity. I've been seeing it a lot, but honestly, RNG, I would much rather them be here than not be here, because we didn't accommodate them, because they are RNG from a really great major region, which has a lot of fans also, by the way. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that? If you were the Riot, wizard, and you had all the power, what would you do?
Yeah, so quickly, just geography lesson. Vietnam, 3 times further away from
True,
where MSI was
true.
played
Yep.
last time around. Then Shanghai is to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like 800 miles or something to 2,400. So the ping is going to be worse, guys. Don't try to treat it like it's the same situation at all.
Okay,
and
Kevin, real
let's not get-
quick. Let me just, because I got a quick rebuttal to that, right? So
Yeah,
what if China, like let's say MSI wasn't in Korea,
Mhm.
and say it was further, just like VCS. Do you think Riot Or in your case, if you're the owner of Riot, do you still make accommodations if RNG? Because
Is
VCS was
2400?
farther, but now instead of VCS, we're talking about RNG, the LPL. Like how
Yeah.
where do you draw the line because it's RNG?
I think that because we work in the real world and we just look at the situation, that's why they made the accommodation. If it was 2400 for China too, I think what they would do is they would be the second seed can come. We'll beg the second seed to come or something in person because they don't have a chance of being picked for Asian games or less of a chance, right?
Right.
And we'll just literally go down the line because, like, frankly, top esports would have been just as scary at this tournament.
Yeah, that's
as
true.
or what is it? Who else was it? EDG would have. EDG didn't even make it that far this year.
No,
But like
it was big
JDG would have been
V5.
fine. Like there's a V5 would have been extremely scary.
Weibo Gaming,
like Rookie, like they could have gone down the list unironically and been fine because
Yeah.
Rookie has no chance of going to Asian games because he's Korean but in China, right? So they would have done that. That's my opinion. They would have just sent whichever team has the least chance of like being hindered by having to quarantine when they come back, and they would have begged them to come because they do need that viewership. But it doesn't matter which one shows. It just matters that LPL showed up and RNG
True.
was like the most obvious. So
I like
that's
that.
all. And then obviously we don't need to talk about going to Reykjavik, right? Like Iceland to Vietnam. Like anyone bringing that up, I see that tomfoolery in a thread in Reddit, and I'm just like, come on, guys. Like we can't equate these two. These are not the same things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they would have done some kind of accommodation no matter what. Well, the original question was essentially just like, what do I think about it? I think it was the right move in terms of like, they had to do it, right? You need that
Yeah.
viewership. If you lose Faker from a tournament, if you lose LSK, the same reaction would have happened from the Korean fans, much stronger, right? And some LPL fans, because Faker is just popular everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And then LPL, yes, some fans are saying you shouldn't have attended, sure, but like if they didn't attend, like what was LPL watching for? Right? Why would they watch? They're literally 80% of the audience, if not
Exactly.
more, of the viewership. Sure, they might not be worth the same like monetization per viewer or whatever, but like it's still it's impossible for us to think let's run esports for free. We don't have to pay per view, and also we don't care about the viewers who are worth like the ad revenue.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Like if you want to start paying for your esports, that's totally fine. We can start separating it and like giving these regions less power. But that's not how it works.
Okay.
I mean, there's also the argument that like, oh, go ahead. I'll continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but I will suggest an improvement. I actually think RNG should have just played on higher ping. In retrospect, competitive integrity is a thing, and the 35 to 0 or versus 35 to 35 is a difference. But at the end of the day, like I think RNG had nothing to lose if they were playing a higher ping, because if they lost, it's like okay, we had a disadvantage because we couldn't show up in person. We were accommodated, and the least toes would be stepped on in that sense. I mean, in terms of raw toes, I'm sure a lot of LPL fans would be salty. But if they played on different ping, at least RNG has an excuse. They're like, okay, if they won, that's super sick, right? If they didn't, it's like, okay. I mean, I had a disadvantage because I had to stay at home and everyone's playing in the venue. But then no one else can make an excuse. Everyone else looks worse except for RNG. So if I were RNG, that would be like ideal. But yeah, it sucks either way. There's no good answer, which is why no one has like been able to bring something up that's like perfect.
I mean, there is no perfect answer. There everywhere again, same thing. Everything you say, people are going to disagree, and there's always going to be haters. It's just how it is.
Yep.
I personally think what they did, and people don't. Obviously, there's the whole like comparing Vietnam going like playing remotely to Iceland. Yeah, okay, buddy. But at the same time, we live in the real world. Tencent owns Riot. Tencent's Chinese organization. They're going to make accommodations for the Chinese team. And on top of that, people are already complaining that MSI doesn't matter. And then, so if RNG doesn't go, you already have this region, or you already have this tournament where people say it doesn't matter. And then you have arguably the best team, or the team who won the best region, who is not. So you have pretty much right now the best team in the world is not attending this tournament that people are already saying doesn't matter.
Yeah, that would
doesn't
not look good.
Really look very good.
No, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't look good. I mean, Riot was obviously put in a tough situation. We did kind of talk about a little bit of this on the last episode where, I mean, my main sentiment was, I mean, at least they tried, right? And I'm glad that they tried, and
I'm all right with
it.
it.
It's hard to blame anybody for COVID stuff. Like COVID has just been like the past 3 years has just been COVID, man. Like, what can you do, right? the way I would have fixed this, which I don't know if it's even possible, but it's like the only solution I can think of that actually fixes the problem. And it's like one of the like, it's just like nearly impossible to even do this. It was just like, well, maybe you should have seen this coming months and months
Mm,
beforehand. Because it did feel like everything that happened with like LPL maybe not coming, the 35 ping, the MSI, the Asia games, all these things, it felt like all the problems happened maybe a month before MSI. Like there was not a lot of time for Riot to react or make decisions.
yeah.
And maybe they just need to be more on top of it. Maybe they needed to look farther into the future and be like, do we need to push MSI farther back? Do we need to push MSI earlier? Do we need to change the location of MSI? Like these sorts of things were the only actual things that could have solved the problems in a really seamless way.
Mm,
Because as soon as MSI is guaranteed to be at the certain time period in Korea, you can't fix the problems seamlessly anymore. You have to come up with these really janky solutions, like everybody playing on 35 ping and remote stuff, right? So the real solution was plan ahead better.
mm-hmm.
And honestly, if you can't do that because of COVID, then there was no solution. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much my caveat, right? Like if you couldn't plan ahead, then you couldn't have done better. But if you could have planned ahead better, that was the only real way to fix it. Just maybe 3 months in advance, realize that this
Yeah.
could be coming down the line and be like, all right, maybe we should just change MSI to China, right? And see if anybody can come to China or something like that. Regardless, though, I mean, the only thing I blame Riot is the fact that they showed 35 ping and then it was actually 70 or 80 ping. That's the
Yeah.
only thing I actually blame Riot for. They messed that up really badly. That is 100% their fault. Everything else, I can't blame them Riot for. I think they tried their best. So yeah, that's kind of my takeaway. Yeah.
Yeah. Real briefly though, there wasn't as much outrage when they showed 35 ping, or they showed 25 ping, but it was actually 35 ping the days after. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to say like that's a little convenient that we're just not gonna have equal standards here. Uh, for Riot's case, like they knew in the sense that like in the sense of the importance that LPL had on Asian games, they knew since like January. Like LPL
Yeah.
changed their schedule, right? So like it was always like we're not that incentivized to go, so they needed to have a contingency for that. I will say in their defense, there's no way they would have known that all of China would lock down. They've like China's for like the last 2 years of COVID has been more or less like the same, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
just like the month before MSI spikes up. So there, in that sense, there's no way they could have changed the venue. If they did it to China, actually MSI would have been canceled or like had to be moved to somewhere else
Oh
last
yeah.
minute,
Yeah.
like they did
Okay,
last year,
man.
right? Which they went to
Yeah.
Reykjavik like a month or two beforehand. So I think that's why they didn't choose China because they're like, oh, it's too risky. It could just randomly happen like last year, and
Yeah.
so that's how it is in that sense.
Okay. Well, how you guys feel like talking about some games? I mean, you guys
Oh, we haven't talked about
we
the
do
games?
have some games that have happened. I know you guys got to talk about kind of the first half, first round robin. But now it's all said and done, and really no surprise. I mean, the first seed for each group pretty much, T1, G2, and RNG all undefeated. G2's winning streak is pretty impressive. I mean, granted, they're playing, OS and us, but regardless, that it's still it's still a win streak, right? And so somebody
Yeah.
still has yet to break that,
Not
but
the cleanest win streak.
not the
so.
cleanest at all.
I am
So
ready to shit on the undefeated G2 guys. I'm
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
ready.
gonna be
Copium.
so free.
NEA Copium, please.
that's what I want to do. I just want to open it up, and we could start first by, of course, talking about our EG and how they finished out against G2. Talk about those games, and then after that, we can just kind of hit anything that interested you. So let's start with EG. What are your thoughts, takeaways? Obviously, we did not win the next two games, but did you think we improved? How do you think Danny was looking? Et cetera. All your thoughts on that. So let's give that a go.
Yeah, so we mentioned briefly EG's drafting coach wasn't there day one. I have no idea when he came back, but I will gotta say that at least for games 2 and 3, I did think their draft was better. I think that
Yeah.
long range comp they ran with like the Zoe and the whatever the other long range character that was, like I think it's Zoe Ezreal versus like Graves or something. I'm like, dude, you guys outdrafted G2 so hard. We're gonna win this game. And then we took fights and like, or no, it was Jinx and Zoe, and we were playing into like Yasuo, Diana, and some Vladimir, and I'm like, why are we taking these fights? Like, why would we take this fight at third dragon? So I will say, I don't think it's the draft's fault. I think that EG's actually shown some of the better or best at least in recent memory, like draft knowledge and just like the plan is there. Like I see it in game, like, oh, this is smart. We can win this game. And then I watch the play and I'm like, what is going on? I think the bot lane has been atrocious. I think that
Yeah.
unfortunately this might be like the first year Perks went to MSI where he just looked like crap and then he became amazing later on. I think that that's just going to happen. Some rookies just don't take to the stage internationally against really good competition, right? And that's fine. I think that Danny is his laning issues that we talked about and predicted. Yeah, they look worse against better teams, and I don't think Flack and Targamas is in the same realm as Gala Ming or Karya Gumayushi. So like, I'm really worried for them, but I think this team is this will look like a pretty close 4-0, honestly. Unfortunately, like it's copium, sure, but like they put up a good fight in every game, and sometimes G2 did throw, but like luckily these games didn't matter. 4-4 gets the same seeding as 8-0.
Yeah.
Let's go, boys.
I know.
That's
right.
Yeah, copium. Yep.
Yeah, I mean that. I feel like that's pretty much most of it. I do think EG had a chance, definitely had a chance to win 2 or 3 of those games against
sure.
G2.
Yeah.
I did really like some of the drafts. You did mention the what was it? The Zoe Ezreal
and
against
Jinx.
Yeah. I guess the
Yeah,
big
Zoe
Zoe
skirmish comp.
Ezreal against Graves, Galio, Kaisa. I really
that
liked
game, yeah.
that draft.
Yep.
I mean it was good until Danny went 1-7. Which I don't know. It feels kind of. I don't know what to think about Danny right now because it feels like he's kind of lost when he's not on these hyperscalers, hyper carry champions. Which at the same time he did play Tristana, who is kind of weird because she is like super good late game, but at the same time her early game is
really
very
good.
strong, and we saw what happens in Danny's early game
Yeah.
in finals. And Tristana is one of those champions where if you don't get a decent lead early, or if you lose early, you are completely worthless for the entirety of the game unless the game goes 50 minutes, which I would not like your chances in a 50-minute game against G2 with a losing bot lane. So I guess we've seen a different side of Danny when he's not on the hyper carries, which he definitely excels at. But if he's gonna have trouble if he's kind of a Jinx one trick.
Yeah. I want to take the focus actually away from Danny. I actually think the main problem with their bot lane has been Vulcan. I feel like Vulcan has been performing really, really terribly. More terribly than we've seen him play in a long time. I mean, I think his laning has been unnoticeable, so I'm not sure how much of like the early laning phases where like Danny's actually dying level 1, level 2, level 3, right? Or they're getting into skirmishes really early into the game in bot lane and dying and losing. So I don't know how much impact Vulcan has on those. But definitely in the early mid game, Vulcan is just having the worst time, man. He is just getting caught. He's pathing terribly. He's missing his skill shots. He's going in way ahead of his team. Like,
I agree.
I think that the worst player for EG has been Vulcan by a long shot, unfortunately. Danny obviously hasn't looked great, but I don't know. It seems to me that Danny still has fingers, at least, right? Like, especially in the later games against G2 in the last 2, Danny definitely still had fingers. He was flashing skill shots, right? He was executing his mechanics, at least on Tristana, pretty well. And his Jinx, I mean, I don't know. That was just an unfortunate Jinx TK game. Like, it felt like that bot lane couldn't do anything. But Vulcan has been a real letdown for me. Like, I'm surprised how little flack he's gotten, which I don't want him to get flack, obviously, but like it's so hard to play ADC when your support is running it down, right? Like, especially in the mid game, when you are playing Jinx or you're playing Tristana, you are so reliant on getting set up by your support. And if he's running it down, or if he's dead, or if he's in the wrong position, or if he's baiting your team, that is game losing. And like so many of these games were so close. Like 3 games, there were times where EG was ahead in gold multiple times. And they had dragons and they had barons. Like, besides game 1, 3 games were all winnable for EG by a lot. And I'm not gonna say like it was just a Vulcan diff, but if Vulcan does a couple engages better, or if he doesn't give over a couple thousand, gives like a couple deaths less, man, like those games are so winnable. Like, so I was most disappointed by Vulcan, and I know we were talking about Impact and how he was playing well. I actually think that in his Gwen game, when he got solo killed by Vlad level 4 top
Oh
lane,
yeah,
that kind of stuff, you and me, League Dad, we are Vlad players.
I love Vlad.
For me, that is game losing. Like, not
Mhm.
lane losing. That is game losing. Giving a Vlad a free kill at level
I know.
4 when the
Yeah.
wave is shoving into you, you get to freeze.
Yep.
That is game losing, man. So you can't do that as Impact. I really thought that game where they had Gwen into Vlad matchup and they had the Jinx TK bot lane, I mean, that was a great draft.
I was hopeful.
Like,
Yeah.
that was a great draft. Like, yeah, it's hard to dodge all the engage, but you can't kill everybody with the Yasuo Diana combo, right?
Mhm.
TK will save somebody, and you have 3 carry champions that can reset: Gwen, Viego, and Jinx. And you just can't just throw away one of them by
Mhm.
dying level 4 to a Vlad, one of the weakest champions in the game at that
Yeah.
late. So that all that stuff is very frustrating to watch from EG because how close they were to winning. So I mean, these little stuff adds up when you're against a team who's so close to you, right, in skill. And yeah, it sounds a bit copium to say that this is a really close 4-0, but it's just fact. 3 of
Yeah.
those games, G2 and EG literally threw gold leads back and forth at each other. And this is a bit of a tangent, but it's actually quite relevant to this series of 4 games. Gold bounties
Yeah.
are
I knew you were gonna say
stupid.
that. Yeah.
They're so dumb. Oh my god. EG and G2 were 3K in difference, and they were getting objective bounties.
Yeah.
That is broken. That is dumb. You can't have that in the game, Riot. Like,
Yeah.
EG would slingshot with a bunch of objective bounties after killing one Baron. They're up 3K, and now all of a sudden, G2 gets objective bounties from them. Like, what? What
Mhm.
is this? So
Yeah.
that needs to be fixed. I actually did think that the objective bounties and how broken they were had a big impact in how this series played out. If those
Yeah.
objective bounties were a bit tuned to be more reasonable, I honestly don't think G2 would have been able to. I mean, they would have. Their throw wouldn't have been as bad, but also they wouldn't have been able to come back as much easily too. So,
That's
like
true.
the whole back and forth swinging, it makes the game feel less skillful and more of just like, did I get that YOLO team fight win? I did. I just slingshot 6, 7, 8K goal ahead.
Yeah.
So,
No, you're right. I mean,
yeah.
I think too, like, the focus has heavily been on Danny and JoJo. We didn't even mention him, but I feel like, I mean, obviously, unfortunately, he's going against Caps, and it's not Craps that's showing up, it's Claps,
No,
because he is getting schooled.
He kind of
and-
smurfed everybody.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I guess
holy
in a way though, it's like a good learning lesson, right? Like, okay, you know, but yeah, like the focus, I think, and maybe the reason why Danny especially is getting a lot of flack is because look, he had like one of the best highlights ever in the LCS finals, you know, with his Baron steal, right? And like I knew that's probably why Vulcan hasn't been getting some of the attention that he should be getting, but all in all, I do think their bot lane hasn't been performing. I will say, you know, Inspired, he's good. Like he's been good.
Yeah, he looks really
but
good.
I honestly feel like he's been leveling up though most recently. And I think you're starting to see where Mitchell, me and you talked about this, where I think there was a problem because Danny couldn't play any hyperscalers. And so when they finally picked Jinx, I was like, all right, this is it. This is where we'll see if anything happens. And to see them lose, that's where I was really starting to get worried. But I will say the thing that I'm happy to see is that Inspired, to me, it seems like they're starting to kind of play through him a little bit. He's making plays everywhere because he can. And so I think, to see him kind of leveling up is a positive sign, and I'm still just hoping that the bot lane can step it up.
It's a positive sign, but this is just not the same jungle meta that we've seen in the past, right?
Oh, you're
like,
right, yeah.
It's sad. Like you can have Viego and Diana or whatever in the jungle, but you're just gonna straight up have less gold than you used to have in the previous years. So like Inspired has actually been playing some of the craziest games I've seen him play in his career, and it's just not enough because it's not the same meta. He can't carry these games, unfortunately.
That's true.
Like if you put in pre-nerf Viego in there, sure, he can get a 1v5 pentakill, but it's just it's so easy to lock him down. So it's exciting, but I mean, we said this on the last week's podcast. We've been saying this on Discord. The way that EG breaks in and actually looks like a good team is it's just their bot lane. The bot lane is too influential in the meta right now. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so I mean, we've talked about EG and G2. Are you sure, Mitchell, you didn't have any more crapping to do on G2? Because we could spend more time if you want to, or we could.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
G2, what? Yeah, go ahead.
G2 is not that good. I mean, they are obviously way better than like most of NA, and they are better than EG. But like, dude, they throw, and like this team will get caught throwing every single game. It doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing, how good or bad you are. You can catch them throwing.
It'll happen.
So, it just takes discipline from EG, right? G2 does not have discipline, but they have very high ceilings,
They
right?
do, yeah.
If I feel like if you just have a team with a bit more discipline, which I'm gonna just say it again, it was Vulcan that was the big difference maker in baiting his team into these undisciplined plays that are really YOLO and really like low percentage plays. Dude, EG so could have won 3 games. Like this
Yeah.
is a world where Vulcan maybe goes to a hyperbolic time chamber, gets a little bit better. This is a 3-1 for EG, actually. Right? They were so close.
That's funny.
Like the consistency of EG is quite bad. Or G2 is quite bad, and I actually think they have the high of highs to probably be the best in the tournament, but they have the lowest lows to be about as good as EG,
Yeah.
right? I mean, your low being as good as our first seed is
Eh,
pretty sad.
That's pretty sad, yeah.
It's pretty sad, but it's true.
All
G2
right.
can be as bad as EG, but they could be the best team in the tournament. But I mean, you can catch them slipping
Well,
pretty frequently.
just say that they suck, and
They
this is an NALCS podcast. All right, go ahead, Alastair.
I do want to say, while I agree with you, Mitchell, at the same time, this is G2 we're talking about, who has a history of forfunning when they think they have things locked.
That's true.
That's true. That's true.
So I do kind of take some of these with a grain of salt, like fasting Senna, except the person farming is a Nautilus.
Yeah, that's so troll.
Yeah,
Dude,
that really
switched.
seems like something EG's picking if they're really
Oh
trying
my
hard.
goodness.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's true.
I agree that G2 does have some of the highest highs and some of the lowest lows, but I think a lot of those lows come from when they're not necessarily trying their hardest.
Yeah,
True.
that
Happy
could
games,
be
Because
true.
we have to remember, right, when they made it to finals, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. When G2 made it to finals, they forfund their summer run and just inted their first series, and then just played through lower bracket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've
Right?
actually
Like-
done that multiple times.
Exactly, and that's what I mean.
My
Like, and
gosh.
we look at even just the regular split, they screw around. They don't always come in first like they easily could if they just sat down, try hard at every game. They don't care because
Yeah.
they know they'll come back and win. And I think that's part of what we're seeing from G2. I do think it is disrespectful, but I also completely understand it.
Yeah.
Because if they think they're better, why would they necessarily like
They're-
sweat? They can practice
True.
things, right?
They're giving their B-side drafts, right? They're like, we
Yeah.
practiced this draft maybe a couple times in scrims and we thought it was okay, and we're just gonna dump it on EG and see if we win. Oh, we won. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's hard not to agree there.
I mean, the thing is, we're talking about G2 World, which is like that core 5, right? That's Perks G2. The
Mhm.
second Perks left that G2, they didn't play like that the previous season, where they were just not
That's
good.
true.
They when they were playing with Reckless, they were just playing scared. Like, yeah,
Okay,
you could say
well,
maybe it's
yeah.
because of Reckless.
I do
but,
think it was because of Reckless. Yeah.
Yeah, which
That-
again,
a lot of
I'm
interviews
starting to
came
think
out and
that's
that-
the
yeah.
case now too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm starting to think maybe Reckless led the team down that route. But my
Yeah.
point still stands. It's not the same G2. Like it
Sure.
largely is still being influenced by like probably the core 3 in the top side. Flacket and Targamas are just along for the ride. And honestly, granted, Flacket being this good is really strange to me because I watched him in LEC. He was fine. He was not playing at this level. Maybe it's just because it's easy to pick up what Vulcan's throwing down. But like,
Yeah.
he was
It
not.
is.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
I still think they're gonna get crapped on by Galaming. At
Yeah, I
least.
think
And
so
I
too.
think
Yeah.
Carrier by himself will crap on them. So you know
By
what?
himself.
I'm not sold. I think Caps playing at this level is amazing. Even if G2
Mhm.
doesn't like win the tournament or whatever, I would love to see this Caps versus Faker and even Shadow to some extent, but mostly Faker, right? Because Caps
Yeah.
has never clapped a top Korean mid laner ever.
Mhm.
He
What
has.
do you mean? Wait, Caps has a winning record against Faker in international results. It's
Oh
like
no,
8th
you're
and
right.
3rd.
He's never. I'm thinking of him against Rookie. My bad.
Yeah, Caps has never
You're
taken
right.
a
You're
game
right.
off of
I
LPL.
misspoke. So this is great because now we can. But I don't think he ever clapped Faker. So even though he has a winning record in the games against Faker, I don't think he was like there wasn't a gap. It was just like
Yeah.
his team won because his team was amazing, and I think
Yeah.
he was good. But I want to see him actually like clap somebody. I want
Yeah.
to see if he can actually take Faker on because Faker's currently more closer to prime Faker than when they were just losing tournaments to G2. 2019's SKT losing to G2, like I wouldn't say that was prime Faker at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bit of a Yeah,
I
bit
also
of
want to
a
see Caps play against a Chinese
plot
team
diff.
and win for once in his life. Like
Yeah.
I'm cheering for RNG, but like their record against G2 or against IG and just like Chinese teams in general was
I'm
not
pr-
great. They've only
I'm
beaten
pr-
RNG in a best of 5 ever, I think.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, G2 with perks, Caps himself has actually only I'm pretty sure someone can fact check me. I'm pretty sure they've only taken a single game off of an LPL team, and that was in Fnatic group stages when they were 1-1 against IG, and they lost they won the tiebreaker. So they've been only taking 2
2-1.
games off of a
Okay.
Chinese team in all of Caps's career.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Otherwise,
you might
they
be
will
right.
always lose to
Shit.
them. Right. The only time that I'm pretty sure an EU team has beaten a Chinese team was when it was Perks G2 when he was the mid lane, and it went to that 5
Yeah,
games,
that's
and
right.
Perks went legendary mode on Aatrox and LeBlanc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Caps
And Perks
himself,
like carried that series himself. Like
yeah,
that was
Perks,
definitely a Perks diff.
yeah, Perks diffed that so hard in the mid lane. But otherwise, Caps, I'm pretty sure he's only taken 2 games off of a Chinese team, and it was in group stage, and then they went to go 0-3 against them in the finals, and has lost every single game against
Yeah.
Chinese teams since then.
Well, speaking of the legend Faker himself and the Chinese teams, pretty much as expected, they dumpstered their groups, both LCK and
Holy
LPL.
cow.
Honestly, I think the discussion is more like after seeing them both play and RNG play again, how are you feeling now? Who do you think is going to win this whole thing? Because let's be real, it's probably going to be those two in the finals. Except for
Yeah,
EG,
probably.
of course. But
Yeah.
how do you feel about both teams? Has your mind changed on any of them? Do you think RNG is going to win it, or T1? What do you think?
I think, as I thought before, I think Gumi UC is still not that good yet. I think he's very good when he's in his mode, but like, dude, his laning is int as heck. He died 5 times along with his support in bot lane against Saigon Buffalo, the
Yo, that
second
was
seed from
hype.
PCS.
That was
It
so
was
hype.
so funny and so hype, but like, Gala Ming never do that, as far as I can remember. Maybe I'm wrong. I think that the bot lane for RNG is better than the bot lane for SKT, and I think there's a small gap there. Especially Gala's just on fire. However, I think that the top side, maybe Shahu is a little close to Faker, but I think the top side is weaker than SKT. As a result, I think T1's still favored. I do want to vote for RNG, but I think T1's favored in the current form because like RNG almost lost the game to PSG. They got a good Barons, like a lucky Baron still at a good timing because for some reason PSG is like, let's flip this, and Way's like, well, okay, I'll take it then. If they don't get that Baron still, it's probably a close game, and they'll probably like be favored to lose. But RNG is very good at playing from behind, so if it weren't for the history of RNG just winning MSI against like the Korean juggernaut over and over, I would just say it's like 80-20 SKT. I think
Wow.
in reality it's like because like there's just a gap, right? But I think it's closer to like it's actually honestly a 50-50 in my mind now that I think about
Okay.
it. Because I think the meta is going to hyper carries. We were talking about hype.
Mitchell
I'm like,
choked
did
on his drink.
Did I say something weird?
Oh, that was,
No.
you said something funny, Kevin.
We agreed that bot laners are super important in this tournament, and if I use that framework, Gala's gonna carry real hard, and Ming is just really good. I think Carrier might be better, but I don't think there's enough gap. That's the problem. So, crap. I just convinced myself halfway through that RNG's gonna win. Okay, yeah, I'll go with RNG.
You lawyered yourself.
I came in thinking T1's the better team because they didn't have a single game where they looked bad except for game 1 against Saigon, right? Where
Yeah.
like they looked awful in my opinion. I was like, come on guys, what is this bot lane doing? This like I thought it would, I'm not a bot laner, but I'm pretty sure Tristana Alastair is like extremely all in. You don't get a lead or like you don't get a good all in by level 3, you auto lose, right? Like
That's every
and they
Tristana lane.
Yeah.
yeah, but Lucian Nami especially because you won't even get to breathe.
Yeah, you don't
So
get to breathe, yeah.
I lost a lot of faith in their bot lane from that game, and sure, it's just game 1, but like, dude, this is supposedly the best bot lane in the world, and it just looked like they were getting clowned on by rank 2 VCS, just all inning them. Like they just got cheesed.
Pretty
it's so
hype.
funny.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nice.
I'm with Kevin. I'm on the RNG train. I would like to see T1 win for nostalgia reasons, but I think for basically for the same reasons Kevin said. It's more of a bot side centric meta, and I think Gala and Ming are just better. Obviously, we'll have to see when it actually comes down to it, because I think their playstyles are very different and counteract each other. but I would lean towards RNG winning because I think they're just better at playing towards the bot lane win con than SKT is right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was on the RNG train before MSI started, and honestly, I'm not really sure. I mean, sure you can still say I'm for RNG. It's so close to me, and these games
Yeah.
actually did not really matter to me, in my opinion. Right? Like RNG played 9 games, SKT played 8 games, or something like that, and I
Six
6.
games.
I just don't care. Like they played
Yeah.
against teams that were so below their level, and we just gave G2 copium saying that they give happy games. They just don't care. They give their B-side drafts.
Yeah.
They mess
That's
around,
true.
and
That's true.
honestly, like, dude, like SKT, Gumayushi, Carrier, they could run it down in bot lane a couple more times, and they still win that game against Saigon
Yeah.
Buffaloes, right? Like for them, like, oh my god, they're not playing for anything. So
That's
it doesn't
true.
matter to me. I don't actually take anything away from either team from these group stages, which is, I think, harping back to the format of why it was so freaking boring and no
Yeah.
one cared. Because we all know that even if there is an upset, it's an upset because the other team wasn't trying, right? If you ever see T1 get upset, it's because they fell asleep in draft or something like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
so um, I hate to be a downer like that, so I just have to wait to see them actually
Yeah.
play against each other. I will say though, I do think they're both very very good, and that in the past when we do have the Chinese teams beat the Korean juggernaut at MSI finals, it always goes to 5 games, and I've always held the small belief that side selection actually determined who won that series. Side
Hmm.
selection is so massive when two teams are so close, it defines the meta for their series for the rest of the series because side selection is what you start on and it's what creates it influences you for the rest of the series. If you win on this side, all of a sudden, that's what gets biased on, and that's what creates its own little in-series meta. So,
Hmm.
I mean, honestly, like seeding and getting into the first seed or second seed in the finals is going to be such a big deal. And so, winning that 1 or 2 best of one, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a best of one, right? I can win or lose one, and wait till we get to best of fives, right? But like determining which side you get to start on is so massive when the teams are so close. So honestly, I think it's really close. I'm going to start to believe that whoever gets first seed and gets it's the MSI finals to get first side selection is probably just favored to win when the teams are this close because we saw it with RNG Danwon. We saw it with I think RNG
RNG
SKT
Kingzone.
again.
No, it
What
was
was that?
Kingzone.
Oh,
It was
Kingzone, yeah,
Kingzone or
RGS
Lonzu
like
or something.
Kingzone, right? That was a 3-1, so maybe not that one as much, but there have been a bunch of 5 game series in MSI finals where I'm just like, I feel like this was actually determined by side selection and how the draft turned out because the meta was either very first pick heavy or very counter pick heavy,
Yeah.
and it does feel like that's what it's going to be like this time again. So,
Yeah. I mean,
very very
to
close.
me, I see this as a which philosophy do you buy into more? Because on one hand, you've had T1 who's basically coasted their entire split.
True.
Their playoff format, they haven't played that much, and then they just basically swept easy teams in MSI. Whereas RNG just went through a gauntlet of things and has to play in the LPL where it's like the competition is so good. At least, especially like this year with Damwon kind of not being there in existence. LCK
Yep.
is not really competitive, whereas LPL still is. And not just that, they had to play extra games. RNG had to play extra games because of the ping. So I'm more of like, what philosophy do you buy into RNG, who's warmed up, but at the risk of maybe being overplayed, and to not to mention that they've been quarantined in the same hotel for 45 days. They're going nuts. I bet you they
Well,
are going. Yeah.
okay, they're not actually. I'm pretty sure they're in their home facility. Actually, they're not in a hotel.
Okay,
I'm
but they're
not.
quarantined though, right?
They are quarantined,
Yeah.
yes.
So
But
either
so it's
way, they have
yeah.
to be in the same place with, that's a pretty big deal. And I know that even like certain things around there with food delivery has been issues, and there's been issues with everything going on.
Yeah.
Like, again, like they're warmed up. Yes, they've got this momentum going, but how taxed are they? Whereas LCK with T1, they played less games, but they might be more fresh, might be
Oh
more
wait.
mentally ready, but they
Yeah.
haven't,
T1 is also
there
at
might not
home
be
too.
as,
Yeah.
huh?
T1 is also at
T1's
home.
literally at home,
Yeah, I
guys.
forgot about
Oh
that.
yeah,
T1 is
that's right.
also
Yep.
so It's like T1, they're at home, but they have to go into the studio.
Yeah.
Versus RNG is at home, but they're quarantined and they don't have to go to studio. So it's a bit of a give and take, right? Because like I'm pretty sure there were uh, uh, Peter Dunn, EG's coach, was saying like, yes, it does suck that RNG players they have to wake up in the morning or extra early to go wait in line to get tested. But then also you have to factor in that all the teams at MSI have to travel
Yeah,
to the
they do.
studio. So like it's a bit of a give and take.
Yeah.
But yeah, the home advantage definitely goes to T1, right? Not only are they at home, they're not in quarantine, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of a
Yeah,
double win for
and
them.
that's what I mean. Like, to me,
Yeah.
like, I do think RNG might be slightly better, but one, I want Faker to win. I want Faker to
I think
win.
we all want Faker to
Yeah.
win. Like,
And
regardless
two-
of who we
and
think is
two-
gonna win.
I'm buying into the other side of like less games, more rest. They're more prepared, maybe less taxed as far as stress wise with otherworldly thing, outside of league things. So that's my feeling. Even though I do think RNG is slightly better, I actually think T1's going to take it, and I hope they do.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, again, 9 games is more practice with our whole like more games theory through lower bracket. Generally, it should hold. However, it was against teams that just didn't matter. So
Yeah.
First, I don't think they showed strats. Second, I don't even think they like got more practice. Third, they're probably just a little tired because it's just a pain in the butt.
Mhm.
Let's just put it this way: like, are we just ignoring the fact that we had a narrative, not us, like between us, but like the community had a narrative about stage buff and just playing on stage and how that
Yeah.
empowers veterans and all that
Yeah,
stuff and certain
yeah.
players? We have Faker on stage versus people just sitting in their facility staring
Mhm.
at a wall
Oh, that's
in
very
isolation
true.
after, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how is this suddenly an advantage for RNG? Am I living in like outer space or something? Like,
That's Copium.
it's just copium, right? Like, people are
Mhm.
just like, they get an advantage. They get their home facility super comfy. I'm like, yeah, I get to go to the office, or I get to go to a tournament where everyone loves me. Everyone is yelling my name in the audience. I get that energy. I get that like that power, right? I mean,
Mhm.
to be fair, if RNG win, they still wouldn't get cheered for, because
Yeah.
get 2 pentakills, absolute library. Red Canits get 1 kill, everyone's cheery in the same game. Please tell me that's a sound mixing issue. I'm
Yeah.
waiting. I have never in my life heard a pentakill go uncheered for
Oh,
in any
gosh.
crowd, even if it's against TSM or something. I have always heard somebody cheer in the audio. This is the saddest tournament
You
I've
just
ever
get a
seen,
little.
and I don't think it's just because of Riot. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Nah,
do
yeah.
personally want to discount the whole idea of like more games, so more tired. It's 3 games, and this is the same region that has people sacrificing their health to play more League of Legends. I think they'll be okay playing an extra 3 games.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah,
Okay.
they probably
well,
played like 20 solo games a day anyway. So.
okay. Let's
I think
let's
they're fine.
let's talk about Saigon and the other PSG, like the other teams.
Yes.
Because they have again played pretty much as expected as they normally do. They had a rocky start there for PSG Talon, but they ended up being just fine. Any thoughts on them? Like, do you think we can beat them? That's basically all I want to know. Do you think we can beat them?
I didn't think that was going to be the question that
No,
led
that's
into
it.
me, but
That's really
I'll
all
go
I
for
care
it.
about.
We're gonna destroy PSG, guys. PSG is
Oh,
ass.
man.
Like, I'm sorry.
Oh,
In the
no.
past, I was like, guys, how are we forgetting
Oh,
PSG?
no.
They're actually good historically. This year, they were not good. They might have got better from day one to afterward, but no team in the history of League has gotten 13-0'd by a Brazilian team in League. Okay, even the Kaboom game was a throw that then suddenly snowballed right past what they could control. I think there was a Jinx involved as well. This was absurdly bad.
Yeah.
So this is not the PSG of old. This isn't the Flash Wolves of old. I think we're going to easily 2-0 them. Us being EG, right?
Okay.
But I just don't think they're good.
Oh,
Saigon Buffalo,
no.
however, is going to take at least 1 game off of like 2 major teams, I think.
Oh,
Just like
no.
randomly. Because
no.
the way,
no.
guys, the way they play, and one of them is probably gonna be EG.
Oh,
no.
We're gonna stop them in one of them, right? We're gonna play great League of Legends, and then we're gonna get overrun in one of them. And I assume the first time we'll lose, and the second time we'll just like not be stupid. And then we're gonna probably not make it to the Rumble stage or have 4th seed or whatever.
Yeah.
Again, the formats is not great in the sense that first he just picks who they want to play against. So you could be second place EG and get picked first pick by T1 or RNG, right? It doesn't matter. I think it's still better though this way than having it be easier to get to the finals as the second, third versus the first, fourth. It's like this has happened in the past. So that being said, yeah, I think we're gonna lose one game to Saigon. I think we're gonna stomp PCS. I'm sorry, PCS. It looks like they look like a shell of their former self. Without Maple and River or whoever were on that team, this team looks ass. I haven't called a team ass in a while, including the wildcard teams. But like this team looks so, in my opinion, so unspirited. That's the problem. It's not that they can't play the fundamentals. It's that they just can't make anything happen if they're not better than the other team.
Okay. Alastair?
I don't really have much else to say, honestly.
Do you think we could beat them?
Yeah, I think we do. I like I said, I basically echo what Kevin said. I think PCS does not look that great. I do think their bot lane is still pretty good.
Yeah.
But I just, without their two best players, at least in my opinion, and especially when those two had such great synergy and made so many plays around the map, like they were always on the same page, it felt like. Having two players that the entire team now has to mesh with, and when the two players that are being replaced were the players that made a large amount of their game-winning plays and their big important plays, it really hurts them, and I think it really hurts their identity, and I think it's really a big dent in their team, and I think that's why they're worse.
Okay.
Because again, 13-0 by a Brazilian team, it's a bit that's a bit rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't watch a lot of Brazilian league, but I don't think a Brazilian team has 13-0 to Brazilian team.
Probably not in the top
That's
5
hilarious.
playoffs at least.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. It's I mean, it should look good for NA, right? Right, guys? It should look fine.
I mean, that's what
We
I'm
had
hoping.
close
That's why I
games.
asked you guys.
I am going
do.
3-1 against these guys. That's good enough.
That's
we
good.
stomped Order, right? We look fine, and like I've been pretty confident from before the podcast and last week when we did our mini episode that EG was on the right track to make it to top 4. Right? They're gonna make it at a Rumble stage. Oh my god, dude! I don't know. I mean, okay, EG's like they're good, right? But I'm so worried that like they're still gonna get caught up in really weird, awkward throws because they just do that. They just have really random, awkward throws sometimes, right? And like God, these other teams, Saigon Buffaloes and PSG Talon, as good or bad as they are, they will grasp at every straw to win against you. And I feel like if you give them any little edge, I mean, they're gonna try and take it. And I don't know, like, are they gonna skill check you? Are you gonna always win the skill check? I have not been confident in Danny or Vulcan's skill checking, and honestly, Impact skill checking has been a little sus too.
Yeah.
And so like I'm worried, right? Like I'm worried that we get into a state where it's like the game state is even, the draft is even, and sure we have an advantage, but it's gonna come down to skill checks, and I don't know if we're gonna be able to pass all of them, right? Like we've been making a lot of mistakes that are really awkward and mechanical, and so I still think we're gonna make it top 4, but I'm less confident, right? I just saw Saigon Buffalo and PSG Talon, like they got their games and they actually were able to show some pretty solid League of Legends. Like, no, they were never going to be RNG or T1, but are they bad at League? No, they are not bad at League. Like they will require effort to play. And if EG spends all their time preparing for T1, RNG, and G2, and they think they're gonna get free wins, like it's all up to the mentality of EG, right? If they're of the mentality that hey, we're not gonna beat the top teams, let's just focus it on making out a Rumble stage. So put a lot of our time into beating the lower teams, we 100% make top 4, right? But if we're on the boat, we're like, hey, we think we can reach higher. And I swear to God, this is exactly what C9 did, because C9 beat Donmon, C9 beat RNG in a game, and they still didn't make it past Rumble stage. It's because they lost against PSG Talent, because they underestimated the wildcard teams. If we do that again, we will not make it out of Rumble stage. So, but if we put all of our efforts into making sure that we beat the wildcard teams, then we'll win. We'll get out.
Yeah.
But hey, we might take a random game off SKT or RNG. We might be really hyped. We'll be like, let's go, C9. I mean, EG, let's go.
C9, I mean, Yeah.
Hey, C9 didn't
Didn't
even
make
make
it
it to Rumble last time, so we could just improve by making it there.
We
Yeah.
could, but remember, they beat Damwon and RNG and didn't make it out Rumble stage. Like that is just ridiculous, right?
Oh, don't
That
remind me.
is just messing up
That's
and not
yeah.
preparing against the wildcard teams. That's not like you're bad. That's you're overestimating your own skill and underestimating them. I just
Mhm.
don't want EG to do that, right? Because they're coming off of being like, we just stopped order. We don't have to try against these wildcard teams, right? God, ego, I swear to God, is gonna ruin us.
The only reason I think that won't happen this time is because this team has young players on it. They're not like underestimating anyone. Like because
Yeah.
it's their first time. If you have a team full
I
of
hope so.
veterans, it might be one of those things. Oh, we could take them and whatever. But I mean, I'm just speculating. I'm hoping that's the case. But is there any meta stuff that you guys wanted to talk about? Stuff that you saw?
Oh.
Stuff that you were surprised about? All right, Kevin.
Yeah, so Mitchell and I called it out Mitchell specifically called it out last podcast. The mini cast we did last week. Jinx has been picked once and
That's right.
banned almost no times, and
Mm-hmm.
some of us believe that she would be number one. So I kind of want to hear Alastair's take on it.
I know.
I wonder who that was.
What
I
was
was being
it?
subtle until I wasn't.
No, health isn't a
I
big
was waiting
deal.
for it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down to the increase in people trying to play Samira lanes, Tristana lanes, Lucian lanes, where
Yeah.
you're just Jinx can't play the game into those champs. She's very good
No.
into champions like Aphelios or Caitlyn, who are going to sit there and they're not going to try and all in kill you, right? If
Yeah,
Jinx
they're gonna
can sit
whittle
there
you
and
down,
sustain, she can control. She can just win off wave control because of how insane her Q is for laning. Her rockets, you can basically do whatever you want the wave at any time. But that kind of gets changed when you step up to hit a minion and then you get one shot.
Yeah. No.
Mhm.
Yep.
So it makes it really awkward, and I am surprised that people are just randomly playing Tristana all of a sudden, but I'm not complaining because I think it's very entertaining seeing these much more explosive combinations rather than the same bot lane we've seen for a few months now.
Yep.
Mhm.
A lot of Kaisa. Kaisa is the most picked ADC,
Yeah.
actually.
Hey, I
Just-
did say we're gonna see a lot of different AD carries.
Yep. Well, yeah, the draft has been super broad, which has been pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're also seeing a lot of Lucian priority at least. He's only been able to be picked 3 times, but he's been banned 33 times. So he's got 100% presence. And it seems like that's why I was worried about Danny, because all the ADCs that are in meta are opposite of him. And when he tried the Jinx, it didn't look good.
Yeah.
Funny
Funny
Go ahead.
enough, though, sorry, is that before Danny became a pro, he was known as a Samira one trick. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
he was known
Really?
as a really proficient Samira player. They said it on broadcast. I'm pretty sure Peter Dunn tweeted something about it,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a bummer because his one Samira game, he actually looked really bad. He looked like
Yeah.
he didn't know the basic Samira combos to insta proc your whatever your style points or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that was a bummer. Just wanted to throw that
Yeah,
out there.
One thing I wanted to mention that you had mentioned actually, Mitchell, and I agree with you. I was agreeing with you as you said this. I think in your cast last week, where you're talking about Twisted Fate and how I feel like he's being over prioritized because
Yeah.
I don't understand why people are picking him. Like he's 4-7, he's got like a 67% presence, but I just haven't seen him do anything amazing. So I don't know what's going on there, if that's strictly a scrim thing, but I think I wanted to echo that and say, I agree with you.
Well, the thing with Twisted Fate is you don't really notice the thing with Twisted Fate is you don't notice these big these big plays because he's stun bot.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a less flashy version of old Rise, where you kind of just picked him for the point and click.
Yeah.
You don't really care about his damage isn't anything crazy. The reason he's always going to be priority in pro play and like high level competitive is because when teams know how to abuse, they can set up the waves so that they just walk bot or alt bot and then get at least one kill. And then they get plates on their AD carry, who right now is where the meta is shifted toward, and they walk back to lane. And even if he misses minions, he's really not even that far behind because of his passive gold income.
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
it's the map pressure, it's the point and click,
Yep.
it's really just everything that you could want from a champion in a pro play perspective. People don't necessarily want to play him because he's not exactly the most flashy or he's not the most fun,
Mm-hmm.
but in a team environment, he's one of the best picks you can do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he gives a lot of passive power. Like you saw that last game EG played where they picked I believe it was like literally TF GP or something. Like they just kept dying and losing kills and like being ahead 1k gold per like the whole time. And like it's not just 1k gold, it's 1k gold that does matter. Like GP would scale,
Yeah.
you know, if Impact could build items on GP correctly. So I have a theory. Oh, actually, sorry, it wasn't GP TF that game. It was GP Jojo PM play Tryndamere. But I have a theory that if we do get leaks later on about what people are playing, I think these characters are dominating because RNG and SKT have just been playing and destroying everyone with them. I just think
Yeah.
like
It's probably
if we
scrim
do
results.
just hear
Yeah.
what they're doing, like the TF from Faker especially, like good God. God help us. And then like
Yeah.
we all know what Gala did on Kaisa last year, and I'm pretty sure he's just like, dude, Kaisa's good again, guys, and just convincing people. So
He's like, oh
I
yeah.
don't know. I think it's very easily influenced. I don't think G2 will be influenced as much by scrims because they have their own like confidence, right? But I think the rest of the pack is just going to look at what the top teams are doing. Like, yeah, let's like at least try to borrow from that. Because when we picked Samira, we looked kind of bad.
Yeah, we did. We looked really
I
bad.
do think part of it, and I think Wukong kind of had the same thing where a lot of people are picking Wukong, but
Oh
it had an
yeah,
abysmal
poor
win rate.
Wukong.
I think a lot of it comes down to, and I don't mean this as flame to the wildcard regions, but you're gonna have a wildcard region pick Wukong into RNG. It's like it doesn't really matter what they play into RNG, they're
Yeah.
gonna lose.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
So
Yeah.
like it, I think a lot of the win rates kind of can get discounted because they're playing these like Wukong's not weak. Wukong is
No.
very very strong. Twisted
Yeah.
Fate is very strong, but when you're getting teams who are just worse at pretty much every stage, whether it be
Mm.
mechanically or whatnot, they're going to lose no matter what they play. And I think the win rates and stuff are going to be much more relevant when it comes to the Rumble stage and the playoff stage.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, especially with the Nautilus win rate. We talked about the last episode
Yep.
where Nautilus had a 10% win rate, right? And it's one of those play champions. It is because the wildcard regions were picking it against the better teams, and that was
Yep.
causing its win rate. I'm going to disagree with TF, though. I don't think he's actually very strong at all. I think he's actually really, really underpowered and weak. The reason it's being picked is probably scrim results. It is probably that sort of map presence, that sort of passive gold, the point and click stun thing. And yeah, it does warp the game. You have to play it differently around it. But
Mhm.
I would argue top teams know how to play around it, and it's actually
Yeah.
quite easy to play around it once you've played 100, 200, 300 games. Like TF has been meta for 3 years now, guys. Like
Yeah.
he's actually been in the meta for 3 years, and he's getting hit by a couple of nerfs already. And you saw what happened when EG first picked TF. They got Diana Yasuo, and that shit was useless. Oh my god.
It was.
Oh no.
Like if you know how to draft and you know how to play against TF, which I promise you, every top team has a pretty good idea of how to do it. It's not that good anymore. I think that the counterplay is relevant and the teams are smart enough and have learned. The meta has gone past to where TF is this really broken power pick that you can first pick. Do I think he's good in a later stage pick? Do I think he's good as a counter pick and so certain comps and matchups? Actually, yeah, I think he's super powerful in that aspect. But if you're first rotationing him, I think it's very grief. I think it's really easy to actually draft around it and beat it. So I don't think it's very good in the first pick sense, which is kind of what we're seeing. Like whenever we see TF, it's like first picked, it's first rotation. So that's where I think it's actually really bad and really weak and super garbage tier. It's the later picks in the draft where the TF fits is where it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But in terms of first pick priority, I think it's the most grief thing ever. I think it's really, really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you can still see T1 first pick TF, but we have said a million times T1 doesn't draft well all the time. They draft for ego because they're that good. But to caveat on that, I don't think T1 is bad at drafting. All right. I do think T1, they go for ego drafts. They go for, I have a really high agency because I'm really good at my champions. Our draft sucks, but we're so good at LeBlanc, at Jace, at Lee Sin, at Viego, whatever, that we don't care. At Kaisa, right? We don't care. We'll just play it and we'll win because we're so good at our champions. But then sometimes you see T1 pull out these giga drafts, and you're just like, oh, they do know how to draft. Okay, we're screwed. Like we can't win against them. Like so.
I mean, talk about ego drafting. Carrier, if we talked about Nautilus and
Oh
Leona
my
being picked by all
God.
these lower teams. Carrier picked Rumble, Bard, Nami. He played a Wukong
No.
with Senna
He didn't pick
and 2
Rumble.
Pikes.
He didn't pick Rumble. He picked Ghost Cleanse Rumble, guys.
Yes, that's
He
right.
picked Ghost Cleanse Rumble. He
Oh
literally
my
disco nunu'd
gosh.
MSI and won.
Oh
I mean, that's what I mean.
Just
Talk
go-
about ego picks, man. This is what's hilarious about that.
I mean, for Senna Tom Kench, Gallo was playing Tom Kench for some reason, and Ming was playing his. I remember I rubbed my eyes. I'm like, wait a minute, they forgot to swap.
To swap.
Wait, they're
It's
still playing.
just-
Dude,
And
imagine you get.
they look good. I'm like, is Ming better? I don't know.
What if we get
Maybe
mic
Gal's
check?
not even the best Senna on his team. I
The
don't know.
disrespect, man. It's so
What if we get a
funny.
mic check and it's literally like Gumayushi is being like, yo, switch with me, and they're just like,
Yeah.
nope.
Switch with me.
Play Senna. It's just a troll mic check.
Oh my gosh.
Dude,
they
I
were
need to
probably
farm that
joking,
KDA.
trading
Yeah.
at the
Number
last
one
second.
support.
Hey, support CSD is a very important statistics, guys. Very
Mhm.
Oh
important.
my
Yeah,
god, what
very
a
important.
joke. Oh my
Okay, any other comments on the meta? Any pocket picks that you think that should be played that isn't being played?
I think more teams should play Pike right now. That champ is.
I was
broken.
gonna say that. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
actually got a low presence, but he's 5-1. Granted, G2 beat us with it, but carry again, styling on everybody with
Carry
it.
is
But
Pike.
I do think
Oh.
Pike is good though. So
No, yeah, I want to. Another great counter pick is if you first pick TF, just pick Pike mid, dude. That dude will never
Oh,
push
yeah.
you out of lane. You always have solo kill pressure on the TF, which is not a Pike thing. Like Pike doesn't have solo kill pressure on anybody, right?
Mhm.
Pike has solo kill pressure on TF. Pike can't get pushed out of lane out of TF. And you know what? Pike can basically run as fast as you can TF ulti, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that's a little dramatic, but dude, Pike is so broken on this patch. Like they're removing the gold in the next patch has not happened yet, right? The duplicating gold. So I think Pike, not just support, also can go mid lane. I would love to see Caps. I mean, this is exactly what happened last MSI, right?
Yeah.
Caps mid on the Pike, just running around, roaming, styling on people. So I think it would be exciting to see that.
Are you
again.
guys surprised that Jarvan hasn't been prioritized so much? Because
I
maybe
am,
that was more of an LCS thing. I'm not sure. I didn't pay attention. So
It was actually
But
no, it was pretty high prio in
Okay.
in LPL for definitely
as
EDG
always.
and a couple of other teams. And it was pretty high prio for some European teams too. I don't think Korean teams played it a lot, but
yeah, he hasn't been picked that much.
yeah, he hasn't been picked that much. I think it's definitely because of the Wukong changes, right?
Yeah.
Wukong kind of, I mean, he kind of fills the same niche, right? You just run in, you ulti,
true.
and the ADC can't play. ADC can't play the game against the Wukong. There's
We also
no
saw
counterplay.
we also saw a lot of Graves though pick up, but that might be because of the Umbral Glaive thing, maybe just vision
Yep.
control.
It's
Also,
definitely
the
still
Glaive.
Glaive. He's
Yeah.
just a
That
Glaive.
item is
He
super
just
broken.
carries Glaive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's also why Pike
People
is
are going
broken
in first
too.
item on Jin. Like,
Yep.
Glaive is stupid.
Yeah.
Glaive is broken on Pike, Graves. Dude, I mean, you could even see like J4 just put in J4
Yeah.
and have him first pick Umbral Glaive. Like I've seen that, and it's quite powerful. Like, and then you just go full tank after, right? Like you just go the stupid utility builds, chem tank into Zonias and a blah blah blah. But you get a first item Umbral Glaive and you one shot people and you clear wards for 2,300 gold.
Yeah.
So items
Okay.
I will
broken.
say that
yeah.
like Jarvan wasn't played that much this year. I'm pretty sure LPL played it like twice in playoffs of all
Mhm.
play, which is like 40 or 50 games.
Mhm.
And this year it's Jarvan's been played 4 times at MSI. 1-1 for NA, and then like Dimitri and Aegis played it. So like I would say it's 1-1 at MSI so far. So it's not like it's like we gotta win against Order, I guess,
Mhm.
with it. And Spire went like 8-4 against Graves with it. So like I don't think it's necessarily bad per se, but if LPL is not playing Jarvan, who's literally like defined Jarvan for like the last half decade, they played it when he was like absolute garbage, guys, and they were
Yeah.
still getting wins with this character. So if they're not picking it out, he's probably still fine, but can't be like early prioed. He needs to be picked into some like a comp that they know would do well.
Yeah, he like J4 is still good. He still does what he does, but it's it's just not being pro. Like honestly, pro meta, they oftentimes will just randomly forget about things. There's not a reason why sometimes pros don't
Yeah.
play something, right? There's not a reason why pros do play something, right? The amount of times that pros are just picking Kaisa kind of for no reason. It's just all the time. That stuff happens a lot. So,
Hey, Kai'Sa's fun, man. I will pick
yeah.
Kaisa if I have 0.5% chance of picking Kaisa in pro play. I will pick her because she's just fun as heck.
Yeah.
Also, Jinx and Aphelios not being as common just means Jarvan's a little less powerful in
Oh,
terms
Oh,
of
that's very
aggroing
true.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have
Ezreal's
Ezreal,
good,
Yeah,
Lucian,
Tristan's
Ezreal
good,
doesn't
Lucian's
care.
good,
Tristana.
Tristana's doesn't care.
Samir's
Lucian doesn't
good.
care. Yeah,
All
Yeah.
those
all these
champions
characters don't
good in
give a
Jarvan.
crap about Jarvan.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay. That's probably the real reason why we're not seeing as much J4.
Yep.
It is the bot meta. And you know what? Who does actually still crap on those champions? Wukong. Right? Actually,
Mhm.
Wukong does not give a crap about Ezreal that much because he has 2 dashes and 2
Yeah.
ultis. Same with Tristana, right? Actually, Tristana has a miserable matchup into Wukong. If you're good enough, you always cancel her jump. Always. And you can actually bait her her ulti with your clone and stuff. It's very, dude, Wukong, oh my god, Wukong being good has got to be the most frustrating thing to play against as an immobile carry. That dude
Dude, that
is
15
tankier than
kill
you.
Wukong or whatever on Steel in that one game where they
Oh
still
yeah.
lost.
Uh-huh.
I was
Yeah,
like watching this guy try to carry just
Poor
with one
guy.
monkey in a dream. Holy cow.
yeah. Like
One
the
monkey
champion
had a
is
dream.
pretty freaking good right now. Yeah, the champion is so stupid. Oh my god, he's so
Okay.
boring. Honestly, like I used to play him for fun, and then now I'm playing him and he's like broken. Right, he's really good. I'm like, this champ's so boring, man. Like I don't
Yeah.
even care about Wukong that much.
Yeah. Okay. Well, any final meta stuff before we move on? You guys good? Okay. So let's
Yeah.
let's round out the show by some more TSM drama. Why? Yes, it's MSI and they're not even here, but there is TSM drama. I'm referring to the Washington Post article about TSM. I'm gonna let Kevin kind of give a quick TLDR, and we can talk about that real quick. You don't have to go too much into it, but anytime I guess we can poop on TSM, I guess it's time. So
Yeah. So the post is a little old now because we didn't have as much time to talk about before. But
yeah.
basically, from about 13 days ago, WAPO Washington Post put down an article. I'll just give you the big points. Essentially, what they were saying is kind of confirm what we've been expecting, but gave us a lot more juicier details, probably from insiders that the journalists interviewed. The big things we heard was that there was a toxic workplace, and it was largely stemmed from the CEO and the executives. What we learned was like they literally had an HR person hired, and then he let him go because, and Andy said that the HR person was let go because he asked a question that Andy didn't like, and then Andy is like, I think he kind of realized how ridiculous it sounded, so he followed up by saying, "Well, he asked 2 questions that I didn't like," as if that was like
Oh
a
no.
better reason.
2
Oh no.
questions? That's
Yeah.
fireable. Yeah, that's fireable. 2
Yeah, so
questions
there's
is yeah.
that. There was a lot of talk about how they were one of the biggest takeaways, which I think people who aren't as into law and stuff like that might not have caught on as much, is that TSM seemed to have a practice of hiring a lot of people as contractors,
Yep.
but making them work as if they were salaried workers. That
Mhm.
is a huge no-no, guys. Like anyone into the workplace, like there's a big difference between a full-time employee and a contractor. If you are a contractor, especially in California, right, which is where they're hired and where we're talking about, uh, there you have to treat the contractor in very specific ways. I won't get into the super nitty gritty. All you have to know is one, they were not being paid very well as contractors. They were working hours as if they were like full time, and they were also given responsibilities that were like a full time employee, just trying to not give them the benefits and all the other stuff you need to give a full time employee. So it looked like TSM wasn't a good place to work at, and they would just be like kind of just doing it like it's kind of like that meme, like you're doing it for the clout or you're doing it for the exposure or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I won't get into the other things because it's more speculation and more like, yeah, these people who work there said so. But there was a lot of talk. It's not just Reggie. There's other toxic executives at like the Blitz founder apparently. But yeah, Reggie is definitely a huge problem, and people they said this is the worst.
Yeah.
Some people were quoted saying this is the worst place I've ever worked at, include like while they were there.
Yeah, that's crazy. Alastair, are you happy? Just kidding.
I'm never happy to hear people get abused at the
Yeah,
workplace.
Yeah,
even if
no,
it's
it's I don't know, man. Every time it just gets worse and worse, and I don't know how to feel. Because I mean, like, it's one thing to cheer against a team because of the team.
Yeah.
It's another to like cheer against them just because like it's I like cheering against TSM because it's entertaining watching just watching everyone flame their own team. I think that's hilarious. It is very depressing seeing what TSM's come down to, because
That's
like them
true.
or hate them, you have to respect TSM for what they did for esports overall. They
Mhm,
have
mhm.
done a lot, and it's a damn shame to see what's happening now.
Yeah.
I take no joy in seeing, like, people are saying it's the worst place they've ever worked. It's People are like constantly complaining about being abused, and it's one thing, like, it can only be swept under the rug for so long, and it's really depressing seeing what it's all come down to.
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts the scene. This kind of stuff really puts a bad eye on the scene. I mean, like all the stuff that came out with Blizzard and Riot and stuff is terrible too. I mean, but this is like that's like the company, right? But this is like the teams, like that. Like if you have both, who do you turn to if you're a player? Like where do you go if Riot has its own issues? Freaking TSM has its own issue. Like it's
Mhm.
so scary to be an esports player when you feel like all the orgs are against you. So, I mean, I to put it in a funnier light. I mean, it's still terrible. Don't get me wrong, this is awful. But one of the funnier things is like so they're having a meeting, right? TSM's having a meeting, and Reginald, he's on a hike. He's going to a ski
Yeah.
lodge. He just dials in to a Zoom meeting and is like, "This is garbage. This is terrible. Just what? This is a complete waste of time." And then the people are like, "Oh well, I mean, if you actually take a look at the PowerPoint, it's probably hard to see on your phone." He's like, "No,
Yeah.
no, I can see it. This is the worst thing. This is a complete waste of time." That is the most like CEO megalomaniac sort of thing ever.
Mhm.
Like if I didn't know what Reggie looked like, I would just imagine he's actually just twirling his mustache and he's just evil. And he's got a
Yeah.
cat. And he's just like, oh, I'm causing so much misery in the world. It's like
Just
it is
comically
so.
evil.
Dude, it's comically evil. It's like the most ridiculous things you hear him say. He asked me a question I didn't like. I'm like, did you write that in a movie script? Like, what
Yeah.
is that? Like, that is so
Oh my god. The
unbelievably like.
esports movie is gonna be so spicy. I
It's gonna
cannot
And then
wait.
you know what? At the end of the esports movie, based on real events, and you're gonna be like, "What?
Yeah.
Hello?"
I
Yeah,
thought
the
this
modern
was
esports was
fiction.
like, oh, that's gotta be an exaggeration. It's like, no, they actually toned it down a bit so that it could be more
Yeah.
Yeah,
kosher for the audience.
like it's rough, man. So, you know what? You know what I hope happens. So I guess TSM is not publicly traded. They're still a private company.
Nope.
I thought they were publicly traded. They are not. So Reginald literally is the mustache twirling CEO. He has full unabridged control of TSM. If he doesn't want to leave TSM or get kicked out, he will not get kicked out of TSM. So this is just how the way things are, guys. Like the only way for it not to be a thing is if Reggie decides to do something himself, which considering that he is an evil megalomaniac CEO, probably not going to change. So I don't
Yeah.
really know where this brings us to the future of NA or TSM, but yeah, this is just it. We got Maple. Woo! We got
Yeah.
Smithy as a content coach creator or something. I don't know. Woo! But yeah, this is just how life is for TSM and for NALCS, I guess.
Yeah, it reminds me of like a child actor, right? Like who finds success when they're young, because technically, he was a teenager, and
Yeah.
here he is, like creating like the biggest esport org, and building this brand and everything. By all accounts, as far as winning and as far as brand building, he was winning. And he's getting really rich. And at the same time, he's like a teenager heading into like young 20s and not really understanding or being humbled by anything, because he just was doing well. And the way he talked has how he's done it since he was
That
back in those videos when we saw him yelling
that
at
was
Wild Turtle.
Yeah, that's the culture of
Yeah.
League of Legends back then. Like he just never grew out of it,
No.
right? Everybody spoke like that, everybody was like that. He never grew out of it. You saw Doublelift grow out of it, right?
Hmm.
Doublelift was 100% on the same level of toxicity as Reginald, but he actually grew out of it. He actually learned that what he was doing was wrong, but that's because he had to keep being a player. That's because he had to keep interacting with people who were equals with him. That's because he kept having to sign contracts.
Yeah.
That's because he had to
Reginald,
keep his relationship with Lena because he saw how that went for Reggie.
Yeah,
yeah, right.
exactly.
Like he actually had to keep interacting with people who were his peers.
Yeah.
Reginald, as a CEO, has no peers. He gets yes men telling him every day, self vindication. What I'm doing is correct. I keep getting rewarded more money, more fame, more power, more love because of the way I act. It's too far gone. This is just how CEOs are. They're not humans. They are actually a different species.
Yep.
I will say this is not necessarily how LCS is like. This is how old LCS was like. And
Yeah.
I think that there are some new owners. Like, I don't think Jack is perfect. I think he's made a lot of interesting decisions. But on the whole, like, as far as it's gone, like, nobody who even dislikes Jack, like, Jensen came back, guys. That
Yeah.
I don't think Double If is, well, I'll say it now at least. Double is never going back to TSM, right? So there are levels to being
Yeah.
a butt to your workers. And it's a similar like Steve. Like, yes, he probably something will probably someday come out about Steve. But as far as we can tell, it's been like 6-7 years of him being basically clean, and like the team has been always a top contender too, right? And then EG, I don't know the CEO. FlyQuest has like Trisha, who has been in the scene forever too. Like,
The
there are
EG
a
CEO
lot of,
is some lady. She's pretty chill from what I've seen.
I don't know what her name is, but I saw her on
Yeah.
Hotline League, and she seemed very
Yeah.
chill too, right? She was with Papa Smithy and everything, and
Yeah.
like Nadeshot's better than Dredgy at least.
Mhm.
I don't know much about him and his drama and his career or whatever if he's had drama, but like I think new LCS is better. I don't think we have like the old Dignitas with Odie or the
Oh
old
God.
ZLG with Hotshot or
Or
the
Coach
old
Chris. Oh my God. Did you guys hear the podcast?
Dude, that was
Yikes.
legendary. I don't want to get into it here, but maybe in an off season, like before summer starts, we should talk about that Coach Chris like
Yeah.
expose. Dude, that
Oh
is
my
some
God.
wild crap.
That is
Okay,
so
anyways,
freaking funny.
I want viewers to know that LCS isn't like, I think it's going in a better direction, at least in terms of the ownership and the way they treat their people. They're already getting paid better, and I think the leadership is just no longer endemic, which is like sad, but it also means that they're not sometimes man children.
Yeah. That's true. I think that's kind of what's happened. Did you have anything,
Yeah,
Alistair?
so
I do. I don't really have a major point. I just think it's kind of funny that I just realized this is something people probably should have noticed a long time ago. When
Yeah.
remember the
Yeah.
time when the team was founded and everything. And do you remember who the mid laner was?
yeah,
It was
Yeah.
Reginald. What's the
Yeah.
team's
Yeah.
name?
Yeah.
Team
Solo mid.
Oh
there.
yeah, a
Solo
little bit of
mid.
ego. A little
Oh.
bit
I
of
mean,
ego.
people are trying to be revisionist about his history. He was pretty good back then, honestly. He
I'm
was like
Yeah.
top
I'm
two mids
I'm just
back
having
in the
fun.
day.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
making it.
Well, also, it's not about how good you are. It's the fact that you named a team after yourself.
Solo mid. Yeah. You're like, it's me. Solo.
Yeah.
You named a
Yeah.
whole org after yourself.
Reflects the.
I think outside of the way he named it, it is a good team name. Like TSM is a great
I
name.
mean,
Like,
it's
it's just
this-
hilarious that it's like it's just
Yeah.
the most ego thing. It's the only thing worse is just naming a team like whatever your name is, right?
Yeah.
And to be
Team
fair,
Reggie.
CEOs do that all the time. There are so many companies in history that are just the name of a person, okay,
Yeah.
or his last name. So like, it is super ego.
Yeah.
That's
It's not
true. It's
unusual.
true.
He
I
didn't
just
say
like the
Team
fact
Solo Reggie or something.
it's solo mid though. It's not team mid with 4 awesome, amazing teammates that I love. It's
Yeah.
team solo mid, as in I'm the only important person. And then you know what happens after that? You get like a freaking half a decade of memes of Bjergsen and 4 words.
Yeah.
Like the trend continues, guys.
The
like the
trend
trend doesn't
continues.
stop.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
actually
Okay.
such a
I
funny
just think
point.
it's funny and thought I
That's
should point it out. That's
hilarious.
all.
No, I think
That's
it
all
is funny, and there were so many warning signs, but it was there all along. It's like the movie reveal at the end, and that's why and it's like, and we just saw it was in front of us the whole time, solo mid, and then the movie just closes, and we're like,
Yeah, it's like,
It's
you ever
like-
seen Now You See Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I have.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
oh,
All right.
Good
good.
Any final thoughts that you guys want to mention? good?
Yes, I would just like to say, just give a quick prayer to everyone out there, North America, EG fans all around us.
Let's go.
Whatever you hear from the analysts, even from us, don't listen, don't
Don't
care.
listen.
We got this. Not
Yeah.
only are we making it to the Rumble stage, you know what? I don't even care. We can get 4th. We can just barely squeak by into the Rumble stage. You know what? That's exactly what Team Liquid did. Team Liquid, I'm pretty sure they barely squeaked in. If they would have had to play a tiebreaker if there literally weren't rule changes. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
like Team Liquid got into top 4 that year because there was a rule change that allowed them to not have to play a tiebreaker, so they made it actually to the best of 5 stage. And then we beat IG, guys. It's fine. We can do it again. We'll just beat RNG or T1 or whatever, G2, and we will make finals and get 3-0 in finals again. So
All right. Well,
bring
I
on
believe
the NA Copia.
I
Oh
believe
man,
everything.
you had me there for a moment.
I believe everything Mitchell says.
I also wanted fans to remember, like, dude, Rumble stage is where it matters. Like, the group stage didn't matter, guys. It was like, you going
Exactly.
4-4 didn't like as long as you get 3 wins over order, you're auto in, right? Maybe you didn't have to show strategies. I'm being super copium right now, or in hopium. But this is the stage where it matters. This is where pressure actually starts happening, and everyone's finally on normal ping, like normalized 35 ping across the board. And for the most part, by all accounts, it's actually not that bad. If you were playing on 60, 70 from 7 to 13 ping locally, of course it feels awful. But
Yeah.
now everyone's on regular ping. We'll actually see some pretty good gameplay, and everything we saw in the group stage more or less didn't matter. Like more or less,
And
like
group stage, guys, that was regular season EG. Yeah, regular season EG was pretty bad, guys. Right? They
Yeah.
were like what, very middling. They barely squeaked into
That's
fourth
right.
place. Right?
Playoff
It's
mode.
fine. It's fine. It's
They're
fine,
coming.
guys.
They're
This is
activate
playoffs.
playoff mode. There it is.
Now
Yeah,
we're in
that's
playoffs. Now is when EG starts trying.
It's
Like honestly,
science.
they gave G2 the wins to let them inflate their own egos. Caps
Yeah.
is like, he's probably going home and be like, I'm Claps, guys, I'm Claps. And you know what? JoJo is gonna pull out the Aurelia and go pew 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 and just one shot him. We got this, guys.
Yeah,
Right.
Mitchell.
Not
It's
mad.
science. It's a science. We've
It is
we've
a
figured
fact.
this out. Well, I want to once again thank my awesome friends and co-hosts Kevin, Mitchell, and Alastair for always sharing their wise thoughts. Hey, it's happening this Friday, May 20th. I believe T1 kicks it off against G2. That's gonna be sweet right away. So, but until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Peace.